This is part 3 of the Outliers Mining mini series, where we have discussions about big issues going on in the mining industry, and then obviously what can we do about it. So with me, you've got Brian Stewart. He's a mining engineer, going on 15 years of experience. Spent a lot of time in South America, actually. Okay, so Brian, what is a big problem that you're seeing in the mining industry?
So, we talked about having these talks, and one of the ones that just comes up all the time, and you see
Yeah,
it. I've seen it personally multiple times, multiple places have worked. Um, it's if you're consistently not meeting your long range plans. So, spent a lot of my background in mine planning,
yeah,
in the engineering departments, and you're like putting out plans and the long range plans, short range plans, whatever, there's a lot of variability there, but in those long
yeah,
range plans, you're not meeting those plans. And so, like, everyone's like, oh, why is this a problem? Some people are like that. They're like, well, why is this a problem? The company's still making money. And it's like, well, you start to lose credibility. Okay. And it's not just you as an engineer who's putting the plan together, who's like, hey, I need someone to help me or teach me. It's management. And if the
yeah.
smaller the company, the more intense not meeting those, especially annual numbers, but quarterly numbers without clear explanations, it takes up a lot of time.
Right.
And if you're
You're a company,
consistently
you've given
missing those
guidance.
numbers,
You've
you've
told me
given
that you're
guidance to the market. The smaller public companies, they can live and die. Their share price can live and die off of meeting these numbers. And so
yeah.
it gets politically charged sometimes if there's issues that aren't being addressed, right?
You're
And
a
that people,
company, you've set out, like you've told your customers, or essentially your shareholders, here's what we're going to do. And if you're
yeah,
consistently not doing it, they go, well, what are you going to do? Like what
like
kind of
what's
business
going
are you
on?
running?
Like
Yeah,
why, the first question is why?
yeah,
And then all of a sudden there's a lot of work to figure out why.
yeah,
And if you don't have the processes in place where you're already dealing with it, which most seasoned professionals know how to do this, have done it. Everybody ends up doing it anyways. You've got to start from the beginning. But if you don't have these reconciliation processes in place, you don't
mhm,
really know. And then you have to
yeah.
go start digging in.
What are some simple things? We're not going to cover it all today, but what are some main things that a company can do or a mine can do if they're consistently falling behind?
So, I mean, number one are your reconciliation processes.
Hmm.
That's a place to start. You need to know where it is. So if you don't have a geological reconciliation and a metallurgical reconciliation
Hmm.
and a mine plan, so the development of the mine and the mining sequence
Yeah,
and all those assumptions that are built into that planning scenario, if you're not reconciling those three areas, independently and then together, and you bring it together, you don't know. And this is where you got to go. You got to start this process of reconciling.
yeah,
Now, there's geological specialists who do it. There's metallurgicals. We're a mining, Outliers is very focused on the mining side and the mining solutions. And lots of us here have
yeah.
done this mine reconciliation, which brings the other pieces together, right?
Sure.
Um, that's what you gotta do. You gotta get in to the details.
It's like if you aren't learning the lessons, then how do you ever go back and change it?
Right.
Change those inputs so that you get a better plan. And then similarly, where do you understand from an operation? Where do you need to maybe focus on your implementation side?
Yeah.
Maybe you're actually falling behind on performance. Where is
Yeah.
that if you don't have that reconciliation?
Exactly. And even stepping further back, let's say this is a newer mine or an
Yeah,
operation that's just expanded its reserves and had a new 43-101 or reserve study, come
mhm,
out. And then you've got some assumptions built into your mine plan. And I've seen this even on large organizations. They'll have
mhm,
a corporate team build your life of mine plan and they'll put assumptions in. And they'll
mhm,
be based on engineers with lots of experience, but maybe they've never been to the site. Maybe there's some details
yeah,
that they're not getting. And then all of a sudden, they present this plan and this plan goes out to shareholders and it goes out in the reserve statements. And then if you really take a look 2 years later, sometimes you'll find, hey, these places haven't met those plans. And then the question becomes, well, what happened and why? And it falls on that work. So, I think one of the steps, especially on the smaller firms that tend to use external consultants to build these plans, is making sure that the operational assumptions that you're using are coming from the site.
Yeah.
So the site has a say and saying, hey, this is our loading time for our equipment. This is our travel time that we're currently running. And somebody's there to validate that information so that you can, at least everybody knows where you're starting from. Because, the worst case for a site is that you're given a plan that you can't execute. And you're sitting there trying to explain that you can't do that. And then you have chaos happening. And I really think that it's that detail. It's like, detailed reconciliation of mining, load times, spot times, travel times, dumping times, waiting at crushers, can have all sorts of other issues going on that have nothing to do with the mine. The weather, accounting for weather properly. Sometimes it's on the haulage. Sometimes it's on, you reduce speeds consciously for, say, tire performance. But
Yeah.
that doesn't get put into a long range mine plan. Well, that has to be brought in somehow. There has to be this conversation. So, really having that solid reconciliation, like you're saying, that in a feedback loop and then a clear action plan, it's so easy once you have that to not only do the reconciliation at the end of the year saying we did or didn't reach these numbers, here's why, but also to pinpoint those improvements. Here's where we can improve. Bigger, smaller operations can all benefit from getting the detail they can and working at it systematically and methodically through a reconciliation process and implementing that into their planning.
You're speaking my language, my friend.
I know we speak the same language here. Hopefully, a lot of the listeners are speak it too.
That's right. Okay, thanks so much, Brian.